What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo, aka Celtics Every Day. Alongside of me here, Ian and Angelo, and joining me here tonight for the Celtics victory, 120-113 over the Cleveland Cavaliers, the first of two matchups against the Cleveland Cavaliers on the Garden floor. The Celtics resiliently, I must say, took this one tonight against the Cavaliers. Your thoughts on this game, Ian?
That was a good game. That was a good grinded out game. Like you said, it did not start very well. It probably started as bad as it possibly could have started. The Celtics were like 1 for 10 in the first quarter from three. They were like 8 of 22 shooting overall, and they turned it around. They started hitting shots. Um, Everybody played a role in this game. Brown, Tatum, White, Porzingis, the bench. I mean, everybody was doing everything. And overall, it was a good win. And the Cavs Celtics games are fun to watch. They're one of the best games to watch every year. It feels like so. I'm happy we got this one.
We have another one coming up in just a couple of days as well, and I'm almost more interested for that one than the one we saw tonight. And the one we saw tonight was pretty interesting in itself,
Playoff atmosphere for sure.
undoubtedly. And the 7 point margin, the Celtics came out with a victory in this one. And I feel like we should be way more excited over this point because if you look at the lead tracker tonight, right? You always look at the lead tracker to start the show. The lead
Oh,
tracker is a little different.
whole
Just a
lot of
little
red.
different. A lot of red. A lot of red. A lot of red on that lead tracker tonight. Usually the Celtics, they have a lead throughout a game. And, we see some of the moments of fluctuation. But this game, I don't know about you, Ian, but it kind of felt like the Celtics early on, this one could have gotten out of hand. The start was 18-4, and then eventually 25-10 for the Cavaliers. And they had a 15-point lead at one point. You see the Celtics 10-point lead later on in the game, a 25-point turnaround from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. Ian, did you feel as if the Celtics? I mean, man, they could have certainly, this one could have been out of hand pretty early, and you see there, not quite, not quite.
Nope. This did feel like a game at one point where it felt like the game could have gotten away from them. But it's something that I never thought I'd be saying. They had a good third quarter, and going into that third quarter and going into the fourth, they were able to hang on to it. And honestly, I think you can contribute that second half to the main reason as to why they won this game because, like you said, the Cavs were just absolutely coming out firing. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland were hitting everything. It felt like they could not be stopped. And there was even points in the third quarter in the second half where there were times where you felt like you weren't going to be able to stop them and the game could have gotten away from them. But they were able to buckle down. They were able to make the stops they needed to. And, once they started hitting shots, it kind of felt like it was done from there.
Yes, and I believe Brian Scalabrine on the broadcast, the NBC Sports Boston broadcast, mentioned something about the Cleveland Cavaliers getting in to Boston at 4 in the morning. And this is coming
That's
off a
wild.
stretch where the Celtics, they haven't played since December 8th. They haven't been on the road since December 6th. And they've only been on the road, once since Thanksgiving, I believe, or since that Orlando game, that Black Friday game right after Thanksgiving. I believe they've only been on the road once or twice since then. And I felt as if that, looking at this lead tracker, that kind of feels as if that took place. One team running out of gas, getting in at 4 a.m., and the other team being at home. And that's what I felt as if from the early portion of this game, the Celtics, I thought that was kind of disappointing the way they started. Not going to lie. The way they started was a little bit disappointing against the team coming in at 4 a.m. And of course, the Celtics having all the rest they did. But then you see the result in which played out was kind of the expected result. One team running out of gas, the other team inching forward. But you have to give the Celtics a lot of credit for fighting in this game and fighting their way back into the game because the way they started this game out, I mean, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. They could have easily lost this game and the ropes early on. Early on because 18-4, 25-10, that's a pretty demoralizing start. And we know how this team can operate in moments of adversity. Now, this game was at home, and I want to point out too, 11-0 at home for the Celtics now, 11-0. So a little bit different at home for the Celtics this season. But we've seen moments on the road in particular, moments of adversity, this team gets into very hectic motions, very hectic sets on offense, a lot of hero ball, a lot of me, and there's just not a lot of cohesion offensively and defensively. It turns into a mess as well. They give up a lot of transition points and a lot of outlet passes and good runouts to other teams in these moments. And the Cavaliers and the Celtics, it kind of feels like they often play a fast paced game, but there's still a lot of half court setting within it as well. You see a lot of one on one with Tatum, Brown, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, those guys, you can tell those guys are definitely friends off court because of how hard they play with each other. I mean, you see other matchups. You mentioned before we came in here, Nikola Jokic, he's ejected against Chicago. I found it funny. His other ejection this year came against Detroit, two of the worst teams in the league. It's almost like, does he even want to play those nights, right? But then this game, Celtics Cavaliers, I don't feel as if it's a game that Tatum and Brown want to sit down and, they want to play 25 minutes. They want to blow out the opponent. Of course, they want to blow out every opponent, but this game, they want to compete. They want to compete in this game. And I feel that way from both squads. And give the Celtics a lot of credit for competing in this game and coming back within this game through the adversity that they faced, because we've seen so many times this year they faltered in those moments. And tonight, a lot of guys stepped up. I mean, not just Tatum and Brown, but throughout the board. Derek White. I mean, even Porzingis, although he was 5 of 16, I thought he was particularly effective tonight. This was his second game, I believe, too, off of his calf injury coming back. Drew Holiday, in a certain moment of the game, was just taking over the game entirely on both ends of the floor and making his impact known. So for multiple guys around the squad, I mean, you really can't point. Can you point to a player tonight in particular who played bad for the Celtics? I mean, you really can't. It's weird. You look at the plus minuses. There are some minuses on here. Jaylen Brown in particular was a -6, but I really don't feel that his performance, we'll get to it later, it wasn't like that at all. But then can you really point to a player at all and say they played bad tonight? I just don't see it.
Not really. This was a game where, I mean, like we said before, this was a playoff atmosphere type of game. And the Celtics stepped up and played like it was a playoff atmosphere type of game. I think, like you said, I don't really think you can go down the stat sheet. I don't really think there was one person that played really bad or disappointed in any way, shape, or form. Everyone did their job, and that's exactly what you want to see. This is the best case scenario when it comes to the Celtics. You have every single guy that's either coming off the bench or in the starting lineup doing their job, and they get the win. That's pretty much how it's supposed to be. And, going back to the whole friends and the whole friends with Donovan Mitchell thing with Tatum and Brown, I'm not going to lie to you. Donovan Mitchell loves playing on the TD Garden. I don't know what it is. He absolutely loves playing in TD Garden. He is a free agent, perhaps. I mean, if he really loves playing at TD Garden that much, I'm not saying logistically it can work, but if he loves playing at TD Garden so much, Donovan Mitchell, I feel like your friends Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown would be happy to have you.
I kind of feel as if Donovan Mitchell, I've been screaming kind of about this. I was screaming about this. I will say the last couple of years I've been kind of quiet because what happened in Utah, he goes to Cleveland. Like there's definitely a transition. Like when you go to a new destination, you're definitely going to be there a minute. I mean, at least a season, right? So kind of drop the Donovan Mitchell talk a little bit. But a couple of years ago, I feel like I posted about him all the time coming to Boston in 2025 or 2026. And now looking at the year, we're in 2023, and I'm looking at it going, okay, we're kind of inching upon the the days in which we're eligible here. It's not. We're
I
not.
mean,
We're
I'm
not.
not
We're not in
saying
the
it.
trade conversation anymore. We're in the free
Yeah.
agency acquisition conversation now.
And like, I'm not saying it's logistically possible, but
You never know
because
what's going to
there's
happen.
this whole thing like called a salary cap, and sometimes you have to abide by that rule. But like, I mean, I don't know. Saw Shohei Ohtani take like $680 million worth of deferred money. I don't know if that's a thing in the NBA. I don't know if the Celtics want to defer money to Donovan Mitchell so Donovan Mitchell can take a lower salary. I don't really think the NBA Players Association would be happy with that. But anyway, but yeah, I mean I don't know. It feels like I was talking about this earlier. Watching Donovan Mitchell play basketball, it feels like he's Jaylen Brown, but he plays at like 2 times the speed. Like he plays exactly the same way Jaylen Brown does, just faster. And it's so much fun to watch. And that's why it's always good games between the Cavaliers and the Celtics.
Both of those guys, seeing them go up against each other, I mean, it's really this combination of force. It really is
Exactly.
on both ends of the floor, and it's like this offensive firepower that you get these games too in NBA history all the time. I shouldn't say all the time because they don't happen every night, but they happen frequently in NBA history, is what I'm trying to say here. You get these two guys, right? These two prolific scorers who really go at each other. And I feel like Brown/Tatum, it's either Brown or Tatum. We've seen Tatum go up against Mitchell before. We've seen Brown go up against Mitchell before. Both of those guys against Donovan Mitchell, that's just one of those matchups where the first one we saw, I believe it was
It's just
2019,
fun
and
matchups.
or not the first one, but this was like the first, like, oh, these guys are stars. It was in 2019. It was in Utah, and I believe Tatum had like 39 and Mitchell had like almost 40. And that was
Yeah,
really, and
I remember
it
that. Was that the
felt like
Brown game winner game where Brown like hit that shot and like fell down and
that was the year
Tatum was like hitting his
beforehand.
chest? That was the year before that. Okay.
Yeah.
I know
So
what game we're talking about now. But
yeah. This was the one they had the purple uniforms, and it was
yes,
late night on the West
yes.
Coast.
I remember that
Yeah.
game. I remember being half asleep for that game, but I do remember watching that game.
Dude, that was such a good moment of just like, wow, Celtics. Like, okay, we're gonna have those moments this year. I'm just gonna warn everybody here
I
on
know.
post game.
I know.
The game's gonna start at 9:30, 10:30 your guys' time, like 9:30 my time, 10:30 your guys' time. And we're gonna be on here like fucking 1 a.m. Oh geez. Oh man. Just YouTube.
1 a.m.
Uh-oh.
It will be 1 a.m.
But we're gonna be on here at like 1 a.m. and it's gonna be like, yeah, we're gonna have to sponsor some Dunkin'. I mean, that's really what's gonna happen. I mean,
Oh yeah.
maybe not with the language I just used, but Dunkin' for sure on that particular night. We have a West Coast road trip coming up. Actually, that's like next week. It's like this week.
Yeah, that's the
Like
Christmas.
next
That's
week.
this week. Yeah, because they're going. Aren't they going to Golden State or something?
I will say we have 2 games in LA that I think are in the afternoon though. One of them is
the
Christmas
Christmas
Day.
game's at 5:00. That game is at 5:00 East Coast time.
I would have to. Oh, I think I have the schedule right in front of me. Let's see. It'll load.
But
So
yeah,
I know December 23rd we faced the Los Angeles Clippers. 25th we faced the Lakers, and then I know
Daniel's
we
plays
faced
legacy game.
the I just had the team logo in my head. Golden State. Duh. So yeah, Golden
We played
State.
Golden
December,
State the 19th, the Sacramento Kings the 20th, the Clippers the 23rd, and the Lakers the 25th.
But we get lucky because we get the Clippers and the Lakers. So the Lakers
The
start
Clippers game is at 3:30.
Right. So that's
East Coast
not a
time.
late
That's
game.
kind of wild.
That's not a late game. But the Sacramento Golden State, all right, Duncan, we're gonna come calling. We're gonna come calling for some Duncan for those late night games because we're gonna need some coffee. We're gonna need some coffee for those. But yeah, that game, I don't know how we got off so far on a tangent. Donovan Mitchell and Brown and Tatum, but that was the kind of vibe a couple of years ago when they
And
faced
shout out
out in
Darius
Utah.
Garland. But
Yeah, Darius Garland feels like. I mean, I just don't understand. Like
him,
his shots are just so pure. His
Yeah,
shots
like
are so pure. Like
there was one point in this game where it felt like Darius Garland was literally like doing a practice run where he literally shot the same mid-range shot three or four times in a row and he made it every single time. It was literally the same play over and over again. And I don't know, in the past I wasn't very high on Darius Garland. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just cuz I don't watch him play as much as other point guards, but I don't know. He's tough. That one move he had against Derek White in like I think it was the first quarter where where it was like a crossover, like stop. Derek White was going the other way, and then he got the layup. That was a tough bucket. But I don't know. He just makes tough shots.
Darius Garland is one of those players on my list that like I have, like we all look at players coming into the league, players in the draft. And I feel like we all kind of come up with a list like every year of like, oh yeah, here's my guys that I like, or like in mock drafts, right? We'll be like, oh yeah, here's guys that we like or project where they go. I feel like Darius Garland's on my list of like, yes, he panned out. He totally panned out. Now, I almost expected him. Now, I feel as if maybe he can reach this height, and maybe some may consider him this type of player. But I felt as if when he was coming into the league, he had the potential to be a Damian Lillard type of player. But the fact of the matter was there was not much to suggest that he would be able to be as fluent as he was in, say, high school and college. I mean, his college film was very, very minimal in the NBA. So it was very much a question like, can this guy do what he was doing in the NBA or do what he was doing at the lower level in the NBA? Because we just like, there was hardly any film in college.
And
And
then his first year, he was like the worst player in basketball by
yeah,
every statistic, by every
and
stat. He was the worst player in basketball his rookie year.
And let's point this out to the viewers too. Scoot Henderson right now is having a pretty tough year. It's pretty hard to be that style of point guard, that quick, shifty
It
point
is.
guard, that high assist, high playmaking style of point guard that can get his going downhill, almost said downfield, football here, and shooting and scoring from all three different levels. To be that style of point guard, that explosive scoring style of point guard, uh, it's tough to develop into that because you're facing some of the best point of attack defenders every single night in the NBA. And that's just a different level than college, high school, anything any of these guys have ever played before. I mean, seriously, you're coming into the league, face a team like the Celtics, you're facing Derek White, Drew Holiday. Those are two of the best guard defenders in the league. And after them, it's Tatum and Brown. And then who's meeting you at the rim? It's Porzingis. So just imagine playing that team in the NBA versus some of these teams in college. To develop into that style of point guard that can play consistently, it's hard to do, but it's not impossible. Like it's not impossible. It takes a minute. It takes a minute. So Scoot Henderson, I think we should be patient on him. The way we saw with Darius Garland took him a minute. It took him a minute, and then tonight, I mean, what he was 11. We going through his stats tonight, just individually tonight's game. I mean, obviously he's had an all-star career already, but tonight against the Celtics, 11 of 23, 4 of 8 from 3, 7 assists, 26 points, and only 2 turnovers in that stat line. So, and that's just a normal, yeah, he had an all right night. He had an all right night for Darius Garland. He had a pretty all right night. I mean, that's the kind of guy he's
That's his
developed
okay
into.
nights.
So
That's not even
the
his good
patience is
nights.
certainly, you got to have it for these, especially smaller guards too. He's a smaller guard, but Darius Garland, yeah, definitely more than just a quick shout out for Darius Garland. He was fantastic tonight.
Oh yeah, he was great. And like the other thing with him is like he's fast too. Like he was the fastest guy on the court the entire night. And it felt like and I remember it was like the one steal he had where it was like going on a fast break or something and I think Brown like threw it cross court and Darius Garland just came out of nowhere. It just stole it before the guy in the corner had a chance to even catch the ball. Like it's just I don't know. It's one of those things where you talk about kind of Scoot Henderson too, and it's like some players just take time, and it's gonna happen. And look what happened when Darius Garland was able to take time and become a better player. So I don't really know how we got onto the topic of Scoot Henderson now, but
Well, it goes in line
that's the problem
with
when the
him.
two of us do a post game show is that we always end up going on random tangents for no reason. But
I feel like they're good because
They're good talk though. They're good talk.
they're good because a lot of lessons are to be learned off of good tangents. Like tonight, we faced Darius Garland, and it's just a perfect example, like in the NBA, of why you should be patient with some guys and why, you know, 3-4 games isn't going to be a huge determining factor when we've seen guys have huge seasons, huge swaths of time within their career, especially early on, where they're not all that effective until now. We see a guy like Darius Garland. He's in year 5. I was thinking about this the other day. This is crazy. Grant Williams is in year 5 right now. It's like, what? If Carson Edwards was still around, Tremont Waters, they would be in year 5. It's like, whoa, okay, this year, half a decade. So you see, like, half a decade after Darius Garland is being, not, I don't want to say he was trashed on as much as Scoot Henderson because he wasn't as highly touted as Scoot Henderson coming in. He wasn't the 3rd overall pick. He was the 5th overall pick. And there were some questions surrounding him coming in. He was drafted to Cleveland too. But it's just like you see half a decade later, he's having these nights where it's just consistency across the board. And I feel like for other guys that people just immediately put out like, okay, this guy's not going to be anything, right? It's like that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like all this takes time. It's not like the NFL, I want to say. It's not like the NFL where the NFL just they don't develop any players. They don't develop like you see every quarterback who comes in is completely awful. NBA, you see guys actually develop. And one guy who developed in Boston with the Celtics, we saw it from day one, and he's now in year 8. He's in year 8.
He's the longest tenured Celtic.
He's almost a decade into his career. I can't believe this. And the way his career's played out, simply amazing. Simply amazing. But our player of the game tonight, Jaylen Brown, year 8 in the NBA. You see tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers, 25 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 10 of 17 from the floor, 1 of 5 from 3. Not all that great, but the rest of the stat line pretty well for the night. And Jaylen Brown, in terms of setting the tone for this game, being aggressive and coming out and fighting too through maybe a potential ankle injury. I believe on the ticker it said he went out with an ankle injury. I believe I forgot to mention within the ticker that he did return to the game and he was able to be effective within the second half. And I thought that was one of the more impressive feats of this Jaylen Brown performance, is the fact he was able to come back from that injury and contribute in such a big way, especially in that second half where the Celtics completely took off and took over the game after what was a pretty abysmal first quarter / early first half. And tonight, Jaylen Brown, he wins player of the game. I'm a little bit remorse I do not have the player of the game tracker in here with me tonight. I'm sure that him or Tatum, they're in the lead tonight. But Ian, we talked about Jaylen Brown a little bit already, but your thoughts tonight on Jaylen Brown's performance against the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Well, like you said, I mean, Jaylen Brown, and if we're talking about the first quarter of that game, Jaylen Brown was the only person scoring to start the game. Like, I can't remember what the score was when it was, but it was like 20-8, and Jaylen Brown had all 8 points at the time. So Jaylen Brown was the one that kept the Celtics in it in the first quarter, and he was the one that was kind of setting the tone a little bit. He started facilitating a little bit, and not only was he the guy that started the game hot, started the third quarter, he came out and set the tone too, because he had a couple quick baskets as well. So, I mean, Jaylen Brown, he was probably the best player on the floor tonight on the Celtics. I mean, you could argue Jason Tatum as well, but I think Jaylen Brown just overall, he was the one that kind of kept the Celtics in the game, and he was the one that set the tone and kind of, he was the guy to kind of finish the game as well.
Right, Jaylen Brown, we mentioned. I don't know if we mentioned on this post game or not. I don't know if it was the post game show or if we were talking before we came into here, but you look at the stat lines across the board, and Jaylen Brown, we have him as player of the game, 25 points, 10 of 17, and we talk about all the intangibles that made him special tonight in the Celtics performance. I mean, one of those, I think, my opinion here, 5 3-pointers. I think that's more the range that we want Jaylen Brown in. I know he was only 1 of 5, and it's what it is. But 1 of 5, you see, he takes he goes 10 of 17 from the floor, and all of a sudden you're going, well, dang, he was 9 of 12 from two. He's 9 of 12 from two. You go to the rim, you go to the basket, 9 of 12, and we didn't even mention yet 26 free throws on the night for the Celtics, 17 in the first half, and they made all of them.
Hey,
They made all of them.
celebrate
They made
good
all of them. We've
time.
literally seen games where they've shot like 8 of 12 from the free throw line, while the other team shoots 20 of 20, and it's like, wow, how are we? Well, that's literally an 8-point margin just within that stat category alone. And tonight, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they shoot from free throw 6 of 9, 6 of 9. So they miss 3, and they don't even take 10. They take 9. The Celtics, they go to the rim. They go to the rim, and Jaylen Brown in particular, 9 of 12 from 2-point land tonight. The Celtics go to the rim. They draw 26 free throws. They make all of them. They make all of them. And Jaylen Brown was 4 of 4 from the line tonight. Jason Tatum, 9 of 9. That is exactly what you want to see
That's
from
literally what
the
we've been
Celtics.
asking for, like, forever, it feels like. And that was the thing. And, like, I was talking about it, and this is more kind of specifically to Jason Tatum more than Jaylen Brown. But you look at Jason Tatum's stat line, he was, what, 7 of 10 from the 2-point range? Or no, 5 of 10 from 2-point range. But whatever. He was 2 of 9 from 3. But this is the thing, and we've talked about this stat before too. Jason Tatum is in like the top 5 of players in the NBA of getting to the rim, like field goal percentage at the rim. It's like, Jason Tatum, please just like go to the rim. You are very successful at the rim.
Well,
And I can't say that like he can't attempt 9 threes in a game, or Jaylen Brown can't attempt more than 5 threes in a game. It's just one of those things where it feels like it should be a little more balanced, and I think they've done a great job with that balance this season. I think they've done a lot better than they were last year for 100% sure. But you see games like this where it's like nobody is stopping Tatum or Brown at the rim. Nobody. Even Porzingis wasn't getting stopped at the rim, at least in the second half. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, as much as we love the 3-point oriented team, when the threes aren't falling, the Celtics found a way to, they still found a way to win, even when their threes weren't falling at a high enough clip like they were in the beginning of this game. Obviously, it evened out, and they ended up shooting 41% from 3, but they found a way to do more than just shoot threes, and that's what you want to see out of the Celtics.
I believe Brown and Tatum, we really just dissect this team, right? For as good as they are at going to the rim, drawing contact, finishing through contact, drawing fouls, right? It feels as if they should be doing that just way, way, way more often, because if you look at the pieces around them, Porzingis, White, Holiday, Hauser, Horford, Pritchard, even Cornette, all of these guys can hit threes. They can. And this is where we kind of sometimes have this conversation. And I'm sure we'll have this conversation again when we shoot 53 pointers in a game and randomly lose to the Orlando Magic in one of the 2 games coming up. But we'll have the conversation about, like, why is this team shooting so many threes? And in some regard, this team is built for Brown and Tatum to get downhill, go to the rim, put pressure on the defense, break down defenses, and kick out to all these other dudes. But in another sense, all these guys can
53s.
hit threes, but then what is the correct volume for them as well in shooting threes? And I think too, some of the players like Brown and Tatum, Jason Tatum, I don't want to say I'm not confident in him hitting threes, because we've seen crazy games out of him where he's like, oh, 8 of 10.
Like
Like 8 of,
against Philly last year.
like he'll have those moments. And you need those moments. Like if you're the Celtics, they wouldn't have made the Eastern Conference Finals last year without those moments. But in another sense, it just feels as if on most nights he just doesn't need to be settling for those type of shots.
Yeah.
And they're just superstar level of shots. And it's almost like I almost feel as if we put sometimes too much of a
Emphasis on it. Yeah.
like I don't want to say like we put too much of a like mental leash on Jason Tatum from the standpoint that it's like we've seen him grow into the star. And if we had like say somebody like LeBron James, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like shoot whatever shot you want, LeBron. Shoot whatever shot you want. And I almost feel like Tatum is inched into that category, but then we still have that like mental leash knowing he's not LeBron, right? Of being like you
Yeah. I
can't
think it's just
just take
because we've
whatever
seen
single shot you want.
I think it's just because we've seen so many games where it's just like, okay, Tatum, what the hell was that? Like we've seen the 2 of 18 games in the playoffs. We've seen the 1 of, 16 games in the playoffs. It's just one of those things where it's like we've just seen it before and it's cost the Celtics games in the past, and maybe that's why we have this kind of mental, thing about Tatum, but and again, and I'm not saying Tatum shouldn't shoot threes because I think he should, because when they're going in, the Celtics are a lot better. But this season, and this was in the first half when he was shooting, I think he was 0 for 5 in the first half. His his three was at a career worst. It was under 35% from three on the season. Now, I think that may have or may not have gone up from the second half, but it's just one of those things where it's like, he shot 43% from three his rookie season, but that wasn't going to be sustainable. And the rest of his, it just kind of, you look at his basketball reference page, his 3-point percentage has gone down and down and down and down. But that just comes with building more strength and building the rest of your game out. So, I'm not going to be, I'm trying not to be as hard as I think I feel like I am. I'm not trying to be hard on Jason Tatum at all because I think Jason Tatum's a superstar. I think he's a top 10, 5, 10 player in the NBA wherever you have him. It just kind of feels like we've seen so many bad performances where it's just like, oh, we don't want to have another game like this, do we? So I don't know. It's a weird thing. I agree with you. It's a weird mental thing when it comes to Tatum sometimes, but you know, if he's going to make the shots, I'm fine with him taking the threes.
Right. And it's just one of those things where I feel like we have to trust it, but we just know that the moments of pain, like we just know those moments of you shot 10 threes, you made one, you made two. Like tonight, he was 2 of 9. And it's like, well, say you take like 6 to 7 threes, right? And you turn those other two shots into 2-point attempts. I mean, you're still taking 7 threes on the night. It's not a low number of threes. You're turning two more into 2-point attempts. And say you do convert, that's 29 points. Say you draw a 3-point attempt, that's another point. That's 30-point night for Jason Tatum. Maybe he wins player of the game. So
And
it's just
maybe
like the
and
little
maybe
mark. It's literally the
maybe
little
that's
margins.
maybe that's the thing. Like that's the mental thing where it's like, there's a couple shots where it's like, did you really need to take that three right there? Like, maybe you had a better shot going to the rim, and maybe that's what we're thinking about. Maybe that's kind of exactly where we're kind of going with this a little bit.
I feel like we're kind of onto something in regards to like, so there's very small margins within everyone's game where it's just like, wow, if this little thing is just flipped, or you do this more or do this less, right? Like you're all of a sudden like way more efficient, right?
That's
And I
that's the
feel like,
MVP conversation. That's
right,
where that's when you're at the Luka, levels, the Jokic levels of scoring, where it's just like, hey, he's gonna drop 30. Doesn't matter what you're gonna do. Now, granted, that's also because Tatum has Brown and Porzingis and White and all these guys. So, like, obviously Tatum's not gonna have to put up 30 every single game. But, the margins like you talk about, you can see more 30-point games out of him, even with all the other players on the team that are taking shots.
I mean, yeah, what originally took Jason Tatum's game to the next level was his free throw attempts and getting downhill. The moment he started shooting free throws often, his game went up to another level because even tonight we see it's just normal for Jason Tatum to almost get to 10 free throws every single night. He was 9 of 9 from the floor tonight, and that's great. That's almost like normal for him nowadays. And just think, without those 9 free throws, say he's rookie Tatum, say he's taking 2 free throws, right? And I know that rookies don't get as much of the whistle as star players do, and he's in his 7th year now. But without those 9 free throws, right? Take those 9 free throws off the board, 16 points. It's
Celtics
16
lose this
points.
game.
So just imagine if you're a 16 point per game player, or say you're an 18 point per game player, you shoot 2 free throws a game, but then all of a sudden you shoot 9 free throws a game, and you're making almost 90% of them, which a lot of guys do. That's a very big difference in scoring. That took Tatum's game up to a different level in terms of his scoring, and I feel like if he just allocates his shots better on some nights, and that's honestly I feel bad from this standpoint. I think other fan bases, maybe our fan base too, doesn't even understand this, that I feel like our team is just so good right now that
we're trying to find problems to talk about.
it's just like the little margins are what matter all of a sudden. So it's like just the reallocation of just a couple of threes, right? And it's just slightly more efficient. Then other people are like, who cares? You beat the Cavaliers by 7. You're 17-5. Who cares? And it's like,
what are you yapping
well,
about?
if we just allocated a couple shots differently, we might be 18-4. Like straight up. It's the little margins now for the Celtics. I feel like that's where we're at, because tonight we're not even, we only talked about Brown and Tatum, but across the board, I felt like a lot of guys just contributed in a major way throughout portions of the game, and they played their parts. Porzingis coming off into his second game back from calf tightness. He was 5 of 16, but he still had 21 points. And why did he have 21 points? 9 free throws on the night, right? 9 free throws.
And like we said, he was 0 for 6 in the first half. He had 2 points.
Yeah, and he
finished the game with 21. I mean,
that's astounding.
That's and I'm not going to say Marcus Smart wouldn't do that, but Porzingis, he's one of those guys who was a star. He's a superstar. He knows the margins of the game, like we were talking about earlier, and he knows you get to the free throw line. If everybody else is getting to the free throw line, he might as well get there too. And that's kind of what helped him. And then he went on that run in the third quarter where he had like 8 straight points in the third quarter at one point. He had like that 3 from damn near the logo, which was insane. And then he had a couple shots that were really, really just random shots. I don't really know how he hit them so close to the paint, and he was guarded by Jared Allen pretty much the entire time. And Jared Allen's a great defender. And I feel like if the Cavs had Evan Mobley, it may have been more of a problem. But still, Jared Allen's one of the best, paint defenders in the NBA. And the fact that Porzingis was able to still get shots off over him, that talks about how much talent this team really has. I feel like, I'm not saying we take it for granted, but it's like, damn, like we actually have Tatum, who does everything like he did tonight, Jaylen Brown, who did everything he did tonight, and Kristaps Porzingis, who, again, didn't have the greatest shooting night, but he's still able to contribute and still take over a game when he needs to.
Kristaps Porzingis, having him as the third star is so underrated.
It's so weird. It's
from the
so
standpoint
weird.
of we've never had a third star that has specifically meshed with Brown and Tatum. We've had third stars, and I shouldn't even say like third stars, because these guys have low-key been like the first or second stars. Yeah. And then there was some kind of weird, Brown and Tatum development, integration mesh. And I'm talking about guys like Kyrie Irving, talking about Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward. Those guys were all stars, but the mesh with the Celtics and Brown and Tatum, looking back at those days, I'm not even sure what was going on.
Really? Yeah, we kind of just like threw a bunch of guys in there, and we're like, here. We kind of played 2K. We were, how like in 2K you just kind of like create the best looking team with the best names possible. That's kind of what it felt like.
That was 18-19.
18-19. Oh my lord, that was
didn't work out.
Who's stopping this team?
Dude, I still look at that roster to this day and I go, how did that team
Not do it.
how did this team for real not work out? How did they only win 48 games? Like
Because
48
they
games.
had Kyrie, Hayward, Horford, Tatum in his second year, Brown in his third year, Rozier in his fourth year, Marcus Smart, Al Horford. Did I say
Mar-
Al Horford already?
Marcus Morris too.
Marcus Morris. They had a rookie Robert Williams on that team. I mean, Brad
Jeez.
Wanamaker.
That's like and Brad Wanamaker was legit too. He was a legit playoff guard. So you're
Brad
talking about
Wanamaker
10
was our
guys that you could kind
what,
of play.
third,
I know
fourth
Robert
guard
Williams
off
was a
the bench.
rookie, but couldn't necessarily play him too much. But those are all guys that you could have
Aaron
legitimately
Baines. They
played.
had Aaron Baines on that team.
Yeah, and he started most of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, yeah, because they wanted to run the double big with because was it Brown that came off the bench in that season? Because I remember it was Kyrie, it was Hayward, it was Tatum, it was Horford, and maybe
No, I think
Jaylen Brown.
Hayward eventually came off the bench, wasn't it?
Well, no, because I remember they started
No.
Hayward originally because they're like, hey, Gordon Hayward, we signed him to a whole bunch of money. We kind of broke his foot
Remember
at the
there was
beginning of
like
the
some kind
season.
of rift with the locker room, and it was like they don't want Hayward continues to receive minutes even though he's not playing well, and it was
Yeah.
like guys were on contract years. Marcus Morris, Kyrie, Rozier, they were
Yeah.
all on contract years. And it's like Gordon
Yeah.
Hayward, who already has his money, is playing over us. That was kind of the issue
That
that
was
seemed to be within that locker room at the time. But thankfully, we don't see today. The Celtics aren't weirdly meshed like those teams were back then.
No, this is
This team is built for Brown and Tatum, and the point was here, Kristaps Porzingis, he's not Gordon Hayward, he's not Kyrie Irving, he's not Kemba Walker, and shout out to all those guys. They were great while they were here. They played as hard as they could, and really contributed to the development of Brown and Tatum. Super underrated to have all those stars at the beginning of their
100%.
careers the way they did, and now this team is more integrated together and built for Brown and Tatum, and Porzingis is a huge part of that as the third star. He's somebody who I really feel as if in moments of, say, later into the future, now I really hope we don't have too many games like this where Brown and Tatum or Brown or Tatum are out, whether it's because of an injury, because of rest, because we have our playoff spot already locked up. In those games, like Porzingis, like imagine if we had Brown and Porzingis or Tatum and Porzingis, like that's a
Well,
star duo in
we kind of
itself.
seen. I think we've seen something like that similar already. The Memphis game, the game in Memphis when Tatum couldn't shoot that well. Jaylen Brown was not playing well at all. It
I was
kind of
there.
felt like they were out, and Porzingis he took over the game. Like he literally won that game for the Celtics. And a quick tangent to go back to that point. I think another thing, the teams with Kyrie and Hayward and Horford, they weren't built for Tatum and Brown. I think that's kind of the difference. They were in that weird thing where they're like, hey, we want to develop these rookies, but we also want to be competitive. So let's get Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. Let's beat LeBron because that's the only thing that was happening back then in the East. So that was the problem with those teams. That's the last time I want to talk about those teams. But
It was the
anyway, like you
Warriors
said,
era as well.
it was the Warriors era.
A
It's
lot
like
of teams just kind of
this
took a
is the
break during that
super
era.
team. This is the big three we're gonna put together. No way Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson can beat us with this, but whatever. But even if we want to talk about those teams meshed. They had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And guess what? They were able to add a superstar. I'm not saying Kristaps Porzingis is Kevin Durant, but they were able to add a guy like Kevin Durant who's a star player and takes a lot of shots. They were able to mesh and they were able to win 2 championships. So, that kind of like I said, I'm not saying Porzingis is Kevin Durant, but in that situation with a team built around your 2 kind of core guys, Tatum and Brown, you have your supporting pieces in Derek White and Drew Holiday and Al Horford. Fitting a guy like Kristaps Porzingis almost feels like it's a perfect fit. And, he's adapted to Boston better than almost any other star player I've ever seen adapt to Boston. Like, when was the last time you saw a star player like just absolutely love Boston more than Kristaps Porzingis? Maybe Kemba
Is-
Walker, because
Isaiah
Kemba,
Thomas.
Isaiah, yeah,
But even
maybe
then,
Kemba,
I
but
think the love is way deeper with Isaiah right now, for sure. Like even to this day, because of what he
oh yeah,
did,
100%.
versus like
Uh,
Porzingis was coming in. Now and
I'm
Isaiah
talking about
Thomas,
like I'm
when he
talking
came
about
in,
like
it wasn't
free
as
agent
if it
that
was
came
like that
in.
either.
I'm
A
talking
free
about
agent
like that came
signing,
in,
a free agent signing. See,
or
that's
big
also a thing
trades,
too,
because
or not?
it's like I don't remember. Like, I mean, I remember Kyrie, because I remember he had the commercials where he wanted like the jersey in the rafter
Man,
commercial, and
that's almost cringy. Man, that is so bad. Oh my god, I want my
uh,
jersey in the
that was
Raptors. If you guys will have me back, I plan on re-signing. Like, why
uh,
does anybody remember? Like, everybody's like, man, Celtics fans, why do you guys hate Kyrie, bro? You just drop it, bro. Just drop it. And look, to this day, Kyrie, I'm fine with Kyrie.
oh
He's a
man,
totally awesome player. Like, I don't any
uh,
personal as a person, Kyrie is an amazing person, okay? And basketball player is an amazing basketball player too. But like Celtics fans, of course they're gonna feel a certain way about him. He literally stood in front of every season ticket holder and said that he was going to re-sign, only to sign with the Brooklyn Nets the next
oh yeah,
offseason.
okay, we're
So
going off on a tangent again.
yeah, this is a
Anyway,
tangent, but it's like why do people say that? I just had to
I
why
I
I just had to bring that up in on this post game show because
we
to be
can't
fair,
talk about Kyrie Irving's time with the Celtic as a Celtic without bringing that kind of stuff up.
well, I think this is kind of a perfect show to talk about him on a little bit, just because. Now, actually, I hope he's okay because he's injured right
Yeah,
now. I hope he
he
does
did
come
have
back.
he was walking with crutches heading into the stadium today. So I really do hope Kyrie Irving's okay, because
That one didn't look good. I
yeah,
mean,
that
the
did
guy.
not look good. I really hope Kyrie's okay though, because he's been really good with Dallas. And like, it kind of feels like over the last couple of years, it did kind of feel like everyone was finding a way to just like, even though Kyrie didn't help himself, obviously, but it felt like anytime Kyrie said anything, it always became a problem. And I'm happy now that he's in Dallas, where it's like, I'm not saying he's, the second, he doesn't matter anymore. He's not a star player anymore, but Luka's in Dallas and people talk about Luka. They don't have to talk about Kyrie.
Right, and
And I feel
I
like
feel
that's
as
what he
if
needed. I
too.
feel like he needed that kind of thing, because he had LeBron in Cleveland and everyone was able to appreciate his game back then. But now he has a guy like Luka. So I think, I'm not saying he can't be the guy, but the second role for him, it kind of feels like he's kind of built for that.
For certain, and I felt as if this might be the perfect spot because we're kind of the two X's getting together for Kyrie, the Cavaliers and the Celtics. Like any
Oh,
Cavaliers fans who check into the post game here, it's not as if, say we're facing the Magic and talking about Kyrie Irving. Like Magic's fans, if they were to come in here and watch the Celtics post game for some reason,
yeah, they
it would
wouldn't
be
care about
like,
Kyrie Irving.
man, I don't really care about Kyrie like that, man. He was never in Orlando, blah 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 blah. He only kicked our ass, right? Well, Cavaliers, the Cavs fans, they have a little bit of experience with Kyrie as well. So, maybe the perfect time. Just maybe we shouldn't bring this up for every Celtics ex
Cavs
Kyrie
game.
game though, because oh my goodness, we have a lot of them against the
Yeah,
Cavs and the
there's
Nets. And then
and
between the
Dallas.
Cavs and the Nets, it feels like we played them about a million times each season. So,
And it
that's
all seems to happen like all at once too. Like, we'll play the Cavs like in this situation twice in a row, and then we'll end up playing the Nets twice in a row, or like super close in between, like a couple weeks. But yeah, I don't know. Shout out Kyrie though. He's
the scheduling.
hope he's doing all right.
The scheduling is certainly weird with the NBA this season. Pretty sure the in-season tournament has a little bit of something to do with that collective bargaining agreement, newly released. If anyone were to go through that, which I have not gone through the entire document yet, but I'm sure there are probably a couple changes that
Well, I do know
happen.
the whole like the 2 game series thing was in the collective bargaining agreement. I remember that. I remember them talking about that where they wanted to see more games like the 2 back-to-back against the same team type of thing to make it feel like a playoff atmosphere. Those I'm
And
happy with. I'm happy with that. Like I'm happy with
and the
playing
rest.
Cleveland twice in a row.
I was thinking the rest earlier in terms of just the turnarounds for teams. I was thinking if you were to really mine data from everyone's schedule from the entire year, right? If you're to mine data from everyone's schedule, who would have like in what situation would be the toughest like game or turnaround for a team? Because we see like today, right? This game for the Cleveland Cavaliers would be like on the scale of toughness, it would probably be way up
It
here
wasn't back to
because
back, yeah.
back to back they come in at 4 a.m. right, and they
Yeah.
play the best team potentially in the league right now, who they've had one road game, right? It was in Indiana. It's not like they
Where they
traveled all the way out west or anything, right? It was in Indiana, one road game between the end of pretty much Thanksgiving till now.
That's
And
insane to think about. Oh my god.
and
Oh
and
my
3 days of rest. So we've had 3 days of rest, one road game in 2 weeks, and we're facing a team who just got off the plane at 4 a.m. this morning. So in this situation, the Cleveland Cavaliers, like, I mean, let's look at the lead tracker one more time here. This kind of symbolizes that turnaround just a little bit. It's like, yeah,
a little bit.
we got this, guys. 15-point lead. Oh, geez, we're tired.
Well, and guess what? The last time they played a road game before the Indiana game, it was in Orlando.
Yeah,
it was in Orlando. So, but yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting because like,
oh man, I did
you
it
have a
on this
Celtics
show.
team who hasn't played since Friday, playing a game on Tuesday, and you have the Cleveland Cavaliers coming off a back-to-back. So, kind of interesting, kind of weird the way that shaked out. But obviously, the in-season tournament messed that up. But
It's
whatever.
the tough scheduling. It's very interesting that some turnarounds. I'm just very interested to see who legitimately. We all talk about like, oh yeah, strength of schedule, right? Like I don't.
Yeah.
To me, strength of schedule matters in some regard, but also like situation of turnaround from one game to the
That's a
next or
bigger
this
thing because
sequence.
we've seen the Celtics lose games against bad teams, but because the turnaround was so bad, it's like, damn, like that's kind of why they lost. They just kind of ran out of gas.
A lot of games that we lost this year where, see, this is where like I don't on both. It's like on both wins and losses, right? We don't want to go one way or the other because like on losses we'll be like, oh my gosh, this team,
The sky's
this
falling.
this team is
It's
just. I
over.
don't know if they can win the title with this
Blow it
team
up.
right here.
Trade Tatum and Brown. Just tank.
But then when they win, it's like, oh man, this team, like, can you believe this team? Like, look how good this team is.
Best team in the league.
And I just feel like there has to be something in the middle here because, like, some of our losses, like, I was just gonna mention this, and this is where I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm going way on like the good side. Like, man, this team is just so good because I feel like some of our losses this year have been just like because of that scheduling,
yeah,
and also players being out. We've seen like
I think because I was going to bring up that point.
We
I was
haven't
going to
had
bring up
our,
that point. Every single loss we've had a player that was out,
and I want to bring that up too, though. That's probably something
and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's like it's a problem because I feel like it's like it's like we
But
average one player out during the playoffs per year.
Yeah, true.
Can you think of a
Especially
year where we haven't had a player out in the playoffs? I think it was 16-17. No,
because Isaiah got hurt in 16-17.
Isaiah
No,
Thomas gets hurt in
literally
16,
ever since 16-17.
Hayward.
It's a thing. Ever since 16-17, there's a player that's been injured right before the playoffs every single season.
We can actually go through this right now. Every single year.
Isaiah was 16-17. Gordon Hayward and Kyrie were 17-18. 18-19, Marcus Smart got injured right before the
against the
before the
Magic. It was
playoffs
such a
against the
stupid
Magic.
game.
And then, what are we thinking?
1920 was Hayward's ankle in the
1920
bubble.
was Hayward in the bubble,
game one
and
against
Kemba
the
Walker
Sixers.
because Kemba couldn't even
Knee.
walk on his knee. 2021 Jaylen Brown and Robert Williams.
Oh yeah,
and
they
pretty
didn't
much
even...
everybody else because
Kemba
Kemba
again.
And
Fortunately,
then
ending his Celtics
where are we?
career.
21-22 Robert Williams, sadly.
And yeah,
and then 22-23 last season. Well,
Brogdon.
Robert Williams again.
and Brogdon.
And Brogdon, because Brogdon couldn't even lift his arm in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I mean, that's pretty big. Like, just think, we trade for Brogdon, we trade Tice, we trade Aaron Nesmith, who's actually turning into a very, very good player with the Indiana Pacers.
If he was still in the Celtics, but that's
but all yeah, right. I mean, it took him to be on the Pacers to become that level of player, and ultimately Indiana. Perfect situation for him. Perfect situation. But all those players, like, we trade all these guys for him. You know, it's not a huge load of assets, really, at the end of the day. Like, it's really not a huge load of assets. But ultimately, we did trade for Malcolm Brogdon for him to be in the rotation. He wasn't even there at the end, or at least in his full effective state. So, yeah, every single year since 16-17. Just think about this, Ian. Every single year for the last 7-8 years, right? One player. There's one or two players who are injured. And we're talking about the team. It's like they're only not optimal when they're injured. Like when they're missing one guy.
That's basketball, sadly, and what are you gonna do?
I do feel as if some teams overcome injuries a little bit better than others. That's the one thing that's just that's the concerning thing about the Celtics. You see nights like tonight, they have their full roster, everyone's contributing, and most of the nights in which everyone is contributing and the full roster plays,
Celtics win.
That's just what it is. And all of the losses came when one of the top six, they were out of the rotation. And that's, I just feel as if when one guy's out within the Celtics rotation, it's like, who's stepping in? No one. Whereas if somebody in Philly goes out, it's like you have other guys to step in. Minnesota, you have other guys to step in. Orlando, you have other guys to step in. Indiana, you have other guys off the bench to step in. All of these places have guys who can step in for guys who are injured. And some of these teams might not be a factor later on down the line. Some of them may be. But it's just the Celtics. I don't feel as if when everybody's out there, it's like, great, this is working. Great, but one guy goes out, it's like
adversity. You have to.
It's really the margin. It's really the margin of error, because the Celtics, it's like it's this.
That's the word of the day. Margin is the word of the day.
And that
when it comes to today. Also, I mean, technically, we kind of forgot Tatum last year. That's kind of a big one we forgot.
Oh yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, it's, I don't know. That's the intricacies of basketball. You never know what's going to happen. That's the randomness. That's kind of the reason why we all watch it, though, because you never know what's going to happen on any given night.
This is definitely true. I mean, we've seen so many games. We talked about it on here, too. Situations matter, where unexpected results happen, unexpected performances come out, and that's just what makes the game so great. I mean, we were talking about it before we came in here. Dante Exum, 26 points tonight, 7 3-pointers. Like, perfect example. It's like, what is going on?
2014 us are just smiling right now. Like 2014 us were like, finally, we knew it was possible. It finally came.
There was a moment in maybe like 2017, I want to say, like Dante Exum's last couple of moments with the Utah Jazz.
Wasn't he with the Cavs too?
Yeah,
because he got wasn't he traded in the Derrick Rose trade from the Cavs?
I think that was Rodney Hood.
Oh, that was Rodney. Yeah.
Was he in that trade too, though?
I thought it was.
No, he was in. No, they traded him for Jordan Clarkson.
Oh yeah,
that is like the craziest trade ever. You're
Now
looking
that you
back on
say
it
that.
because Jordan Clarkson is
Oh
great.
my god. Yeah.
Wow. So the Utah Jazz ended up flipping Dante Exum for like the 6th man of the year,
For the 6th
basically.
man of the year.
And I want to say that
Damn.
he's the modern day Terrence Ross.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Aaron, like no doubt, modern day Terrence Ross from the standpoint of you're on a team going absolutely nowhere. You're clearly like a guy who could contribute, be almost a 6th man, probably be the 6th man on a championship level team.
But
It's just like,
nah.
how many more years is he going to be in Utah?
Nah.
It's like, I have no idea.
He's
But
you know what's crazy? Even with Lauri Markkanen, he's still the face of Utah. Jordan Clarkson. Like 6th man Jordan Clarkson is still the face of Utah basketball, in my opinion, right now.
it's just such a weird. Some guys have. We're off on more tangents, but some guys have just crazy career arcs. Like Jordan Clarkson, just think of his career arc. He starts with the Lakers, right? And he's like with this young Laker, like, oh, look, new Showtime young Lakers. And then it's like, no, you guys win 17 games. Oh, no, with
Oh
all
no,
these
Kobe
guys.
retired. But hey, we have LeBron. Oh no, LeBron traded all of us.
And then Jordan Clarkson, he ends up, how did he ends up in Cleveland because
He ends
isn't
up
he
in
in the,
Cleveland
he's
in
in,
2018.
yeah, because he's in the Isaiah Thomas, Larry Nance. So he goes with Larry Nance from the Lakers to the Cavs. And he's playing with
Ooh.
LeBron. And he has so many moments in the playoffs and in the finals where it's like, just give it to LeBron. And it's like, nope, Jordan Clarkson moment. Here we
Jordan
go.
Clarkson time.
And it was like, okay. And there'd be like the classic 1 of 6. Like that was like the classic Jordan Clarkson line. I feel like he was like, oh, 1 of 6, Jordan Clarkson. But he plays with the Cavs. He's traded to Utah. He plays a legitimate role on a Utah Jazz team that has aspirations of winning the title. They fail in the playoffs multiple times, choke in the playoffs multiple times. He stays around. He's not shipped off. He's not sold to another team on the trade market or anything like that from Utah. And now he's just playing with this. And Draymond Green has been ejected.
I was
And
just gonna say that because he punched Yusuf Nurkic in the face.
I was gonna say, what is
He
happening
punched
over here?
Yusuf Nurkic in the face. I'm
And now he's
watching the
running back.
replay.
What's going on?
Yeah,
Sorry,
so we have
breaking news,
sorry,
folks.
this is
Draymond
in
Green's
game.
going nuts again.
Breaking news, Draymond Green does something crazy on basketball court. Or
Dude,
I don't know if that's really
how
breaking
can you
news.
do this? Wait a
Bro,
minute. What were we talking about so we can end this?
we're
And then
talking
I
about
want to talk
Jordan
about.
Clarkson.
Okay, Jordan Clarkson now with the
He's in Utah.
Now with Utah with this developing young team, 6th man of the year. We'll see where his career goes. But some guys have weird career arcs, especially like Draymond Green, 4-time champion who continues. How is this even? Like, is he gonna get? How many games is he gonna get?
I don't know, man.
That was a punch. That wasn't some like.
It was more of an open hand slap. Looking at the slow motion replay, but still,
But he's like.
that was at a high velocity.
But just think about this. Draymond Green, this is not. What are you doing? This is not. This is the John Morant second gun video. It's like how are you? What? Like you already got 8 games. The league already talked to you, and you show up on an IG live video with the gun again. Like that. That was kind of weird. This one is weird too. He chokes out Rudy Gobert. He misses 5 games. The Warriors are absolutely awful during that stretch. They're awful. They've been awful for a good majority of the season. And he does that and gets ejected against the Suns in a game that's 68-62. And let's all throw this out here too. This game could have implications for tiebreakers later on down the line. We have no idea what the standings shake out to be. You never know where your team's going to be at the end of the season. So it's like, this is a pretty, important game. It's on TNT, national TV. Gets thrown out again. He gets thrown out again. And he legitimately throws a punch, too, against a player. I want to say, there are some players, like Draymond, I'm quite certain we can pull up some Draymond Yusuf Nurkic banter. The way we did pull up on Twitter. The Twitter universe.
Woj just said Draymond Green will have to await a league office review and possibility of another suspension.
No doubt.
That's what Woj just said.
No doubt.
Man,
because
come on,
just
Draymond,
think about this.
bro, all he has to do is just
Rudy Gobert.
I don't know, man. Like it's like I sympathize with Draymond a little bit because it's like we had a guy like Marcus Smart who, it's a guy that you'd love to have on your team, but you hate to play against him type thing. But come on, dude. All you have to do is play the Marcus Smart role. You don't have to do this. Like, we know you're Draymond Green. Like, we know your reputation. Like, all you got to do is just play defense, man. And he had like a game the other day where he hit like 4 threes. It's like, come on, man. Like why? Like why does he have to do this? Maybe it's a little too far gone for that. Maybe it's now like turning to the NBA where it's just like, when is enough when it comes to the antics? But I don't know. I don't get it. I don't really get it. But
We're reaching a point where it's like, this is
like
it's
not so breaking
unbelievable.
news.
It's actually unbelievable that we
not
just saw
so
Draymond Green
breaking
throw a
news.
punch.
Draymond Green does something stupid on basketball court.
Like, it's unbelievable that it's not. I mean, I guess it's I shouldn't say it's unbelievable from the standpoint of this. When you see repetitive action out of somebody, right? And don't see anywhere where you're like, okay, well, this is like, if you don't see any incentive for change, right? When is the change ever going to come? For Draymond Green, he's won 4 rings. He's been paid $100 million, I believe, twice. I mean, he's made in life. He is, and he's an NBA legend. He's a legend in the San Francisco Bay Area as well, and he's somebody that people talk about a lot, a lot, a lot. And there's really nothing like 5 games, 5 games. Like, thanks for the rest. Thanks for the rest. That's probably what he thought. That's probably what he thought.
StatMuse just posted something that said the all Draymond team, and it has Yusuf Nurkic, Rudy Gobert, Domantas Sabonis, and Jordan Poole.
See, yes.
You can add Steven Adams in that too. But
Oh yeah, Steven Adams. He just hates the. Wait, go through that list again.
So it's Yusuf Nurkic, Rudy Gobert, Domantas Sabonis, Jordan Poole, and Steven Adams. So I guess he just hates European big men, apparently.
Yeah, for real. And then Jordan Poole.
And then Jordan Poole. But Jordan Poole kind of had it coming in hindsight.
Yeah, I don't know what was. That's just the event timeline of Draymond Green is just absolutely. It's getting to a point where you're like, why are you using your level of acceptance? Because let's face it, NBA stars, there's more acceptance for their antics than any other player in the league. Like, it's just a thing, like LeBron James screaming to the ref constantly. There's going to be more tolerance from a referee to listen to him, to LeBron James, than there's a tolerance to listen to somebody like Grant Williams, right? We've seen it so many times on display, right? And for some reason, Draymond Green uses his level of acceptance by referees, by the league, by fans, by whoever, right? The community, the NBA community. Use it to go after other guys like this and inflict his no BS kind of emotion in a violent way onto other players. Like, I don't know if that's the league. I don't know what they can do about
It's
that.
almost
Really,
at this point like there's
you
nothing
can't
they're
really
gonna
do
do. There's
anything.
nothing. If they haven't done anything with like everything that he's done over the years, like what is this gonna do that's like potentially different than choking out Rudy Gobert or kicking Steven Adams in the balls or punching Draymond Green in the face or stomping on Domantas Sabonis' chest or open hand slapping Yusuf Nurkic. Like, at this point, it's like we shouldn't even expect anything to happen. Like, he'll probably end up with like another like 5-game suspension, probably 10 since it's the second time it's happened this season.
Well, just think about that,
But like,
Ian. If
but
he has a 10-game
that's
suspension, that he'll be out for a month.
also
Like, the
that's the
Warriors are
weirdest
gonna have
thing
to
because it's
survive
like
without Draymond for another month. That's
no, that's the
ridiculous.
problem with the Warriors. Like, the Warriors are hanging by a thread right now anyway because I don't know, man. I don't know. I got a couple friends who are Warriors fans, and like I can't imagine having to be a Warriors fan where it's just like every single night you're like, is Draymond gonna do something stupid? So I it's so crazy to think about, but like
I feel like
it's just like what we're just kind of screaming into the void at the situation.
it is nuts that okay, the East Coast version, like L.A., New York, right? There's L.A., New York, but then you go north, right? Both of those cities, San Francisco, Boston, right? San Francisco, Boston. San Francisco kept their Draymond Green, right? Draymond Green, right? But they're Marcus Smart, basically, right? And Marcus Smart, it was like, all right, see ya. And I feel as if we didn't have the same level of concern of like he's going to do something stupid, but there were moments in his career where it was like, all right, can he just not throw it away here, right? Like throw it away in this moment.
Can we not like get into somebody's face, or can we not
when we're down when we're down 2 and give up a big 3, right?
Can we not
with
shoot a 3
left,
with 20 seconds left in the shot clock?
Well, look, when we give up a 3 after we're down 2 and now we're down 5 with 2 minutes left, and then in that moment, don't go and chuck up a 3 and then yell in the ref's face and grab a technical and then put more points on the board for the other team. Like that was kind of the concern.
Yeah.
Sometimes with Marcus Smart, and some guys are guilty of that, but it would be like, all right, the emotional sphere is getting the best of you a little bit right now, and that's Draymond Green. That's Draymond Green. You see those moments where the emotion, the passion is needed and it's wanted and it's crucial. But then other moments, it sparks events where it's like, all right, we just went totally backwards in a basketball sense. And specifically talking about the Warriors right now, if he suspended more games, this season turns into a complete disaster for them. It does. Yeah. It completely does. They're already not playing well. And it's because the roster. It's because the roster and relativity to the rest of the league.
It's also the coaching when it comes to the Warriors, because Steve Kerr hates to play guys like Kuminga and Moody. I've noticed that watching so many West Coast games on ESPN. It's like Steve Kerr hates Moses Moody for a fact. Like, did you watch that Sacramento game, the in-season tournament game against Sacramento?
Oh, yeah, that was the big topic. Literally, I was right here in this spot. I sat right here in this spot. I walked in my room, right? And I heard on the TV, and Moses Moody goes out of the game, and I'm like, what? I was literally like, is there some reason like they have some kind of death lineup? Like what's going? Like even the Celtics, who have a top 6 and then a top 5 at the end. If Sam Hauser's hot,
they're going to keep Sam Hauser in the game most of the time.
They're going to be keeping Sam Hauser in the game. That game, Moses Moody, I'm sorry, bud. You're coming out. You're coming out for Klay Thompson. And 1 of 10 Klay Thompson, because he has 4 rings. And that's where the Warriors are kind of entering that 2013 Lakers stage of, okay, now we're catering to stars who aren't doing it anymore. That's just kind of where they're at. And Draymond, through it all, like, it doesn't make it any better for their squad going out and potentially being suspended now again. But right now they are 11th in the Western Conference, 10-12. If Draymond misses another 10 games, they'll be almost 30 games. They'll be 32 games into the season if he's suspended 10 games. And what do they go over that stretch? They probably don't go. They either go 500 or below, I would say, without Draymond Green. I mean, yeesh.
But hey, it's a good thing we're Celtics, and we don't have to worry about the Warriors right now, right?
No, I feel like we should enjoy this Warriors downfall to some degree.
I mean, I'm gonna enjoy it.
They kind of they took away Tatum's first ring. They took away Brown's first ring. They took away
Marcus Smart and Robert Williams still being on this team.
And a ring. They took away a ring from everybody on that squad. And that squad, I think
they took a ring away from Nick Stauskas. That's probably their biggest crime. Matt Ryan,
Malik Fitz, Jawan Morgan.
Bro,
I mean,
oh my God, you denied us from a Malik Fitz appearance at a championship parade. Honestly, I'm happy the Warriors are sucking now. God damn it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, just that whole team. Daniel Tice, Daniel
Oh my
Tice,
God.
dude, he
Daniel
got put
Tice
on
wouldn't
a.
be a Clipper right now if we won
He
a
got
ring.
Shaden Sharp made him do the nay last night. It was bad. It was full on like. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. But
Al
yeah,
Horford.
I
Al
don't.
Horford would probably have retired this season if he won a ring that year.
This is
I mean,
actually
I'm not
true.
saying
Like Al Horford might
like
not be playing right
Al
now.
Horford might not
He
be
won a
playing
ring
if
that
he
year.
won that ring. Like Al
That's
Horford's playing to win a ring right now. Like, goddamn.
that's definitely possible. I feel like Al Horford's going to enter into the LeBron stage eventually, the next 1-2 years, where he's 39, still putting up 3 blocks every other game. Because that's where he's at.
Which I know we talk about how great LeBron has aged and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, how they're doing so many great things at the ages of 35 plus. I feel like we don't talk about Al Horford's longevity enough. Like, I mean, granted, Al Horford was never at that level of a LeBron or a Steph or a KD, but the fact that he's still been able to have a 17-year career and still be a productive player in the NBA, like, there's not a whole lot of players who are still productive at season 17. So,
On a
you know,
contending team year after year. You think about so many players,
and
too.
he's still a huge part of it. Like, he's still a huge part of it, even though he's off the bench. He's still a huge part of this team.
You think about so many players, too, who have had runs where they may have extended the back portion of their career and played well. You think about, say, like Bismack Biyombo right now. He's extending that back end of his career with the Suns and with the Grizzlies. But he's ultimately not a coveted player that contending teams want. Al Horford, now, although other contending teams, like, how coveted would Al Horford be? He would still be somebody who would make their rotation, even if he
The
was on their
Warriors
team.
would probably love a guy like Al Horford right now.
Right. And 17-5 with the Celtics, there's something to be said that Al Horford, think about the last decade of his career. Every single year, he's been in contention outside of that 1 year in OKC in which that team was rebuilding. He pretty much rested half the year. They straight up
They
just
literally
rested
stopped
him.
playing him because he was old.
Dude, we'll bring up more Celtics history right now for everybody. They, I believe, were on a 20. They were like 1-25 to end the season.
They didn't play him at all.
They didn't play him at all. They were 1-25, and that one win came against the Celtics. I actually believe they were like 2-25, and they had 2 wins.
That was the game where they had the youngest starting lineup ever, and Moses Brown absolutely cooked us. Is that the game that we're talking about?
No, we won the game. Moses Brown cooked us in because Luke Cornett came in and made 2 threes in his first ever game as a Celtic.
That's
And
right.
see, Luke Cornett, he's been since his day one. He's been contributing since
Luke
day one.
Luke Cornett's a day one guy.
But that was in OKC. There was a game in Boston where we completely coughed up, and they won 2 games the rest of the season. In 25 games, I believe, they won 2 games. It was that game in Boston, and then a game the Clippers absolutely threw at the end of the season for playoff
That's right,
positioning
because they didn't want to play the Lakers, right?
Yes.
In the first round or something like that. Yeah.
I believe it was something of that sort where they didn't want to play the Lakers or I forgot who the other team was. Who was the 6th seed? It was who the Lakers played in the second round that year, or the Suns played the Nuggets. It was the Warriors. It was the Warriors.
It was the Warriors.
The Warriors. Yeah. Yes.
No, it wasn't the Warriors because the Warriors weren't.
We're getting our playoff years.
Honestly, we need to. We're getting mixed up, but I think it was the Lakers or the.
It was the Lakers or the Warriors for the 7th spot, and then the 6th spot. I believe it was. I can't remember who.
Was it Utah?
It was Denver. Denver faced somebody in the first round who they beat. I think it might have been Portland. Portland was good.
It was probably Portland, and then because I don't know.
We've been through so I remember as a kid thinking
about
like
so many different scenarios over the last years of the NBA history that it's all kind of mixing together.
Well, especially
wasn't that the year that Andre Drummond imitated LeBron when they were playing the Suns? Is that the year we're talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
Because the Clippers played the Jazz in that year because that was the Terrence Mann game against Utah where they made the Western Conference Finals and they played the Suns and they lost to the Suns in the Western Conference Finals. I think I'm getting it now.
The Clippers wanted to play the Mavericks over the Blazers or
That's
Lakers
right,
or Warriors.
Because they cooked Luka in the bubble and then they cooked Luka again in the
and I don't know
the first round that year.
But I don't know if I would go with Cook because remember though I feel like they won those series, but it was like, geez, Clippers, geez, pandemic P. Because remember they were down like 2-0 to start the series. And then I think and then they came back and eventually won, if I'm not mistaken. But
I think so, yeah.
That's kind of weird. The Clippers' history, I don't feel like it's as bad as we think. It's just like they never made the finals, so it's like, well, you failed, so haha. But
hey,
if you really
Terrence
look at it, it's like,
Mann
well, they
in
still
that
made
one
the
game
second
against
round.
Utah,
Right?
like 35.
They made the conference finals one year, which that was the only team. That's the only Clippers team ever to ever make the conference finals. So something definitely to be said about those DeMarcus Cousins Clippers. Nobody remembers who's on that.
And
squad.
honestly, if Kawhi didn't tear his ACL, they probably would have made the finals.
They could have even won. The Bucks.
They probably would have beat the Bucks in the finals.
The Bucks were now. Man, wow! Another post game. I knew we couldn't go a post game without trashing on Milwaukee somehow. But, jeez,
days without talking about trashing on Milwaukee. Back to zero.
Milwaukee wasn't. That was probably like, okay, they deserve that title for the adversity they faced, the resiliency in which they showed, and ultimately just the fact that they won the amount of games in which they needed to win the championship. They are a deserving champion. But that was not a dominant championship effort by any metric whatsoever. We've seen teams go through the playoffs. You think about the Miami Heat with LeBron James, Big Three, the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. Those are some dominant teams. Even the Celtics in 2008, even though their playoff run wasn't dominant, that team was fairly dominant throughout the season. And even in the moments in which they needed to come through, they came through in a dominant fashion. The Milwaukee Bucks, it was constantly like, whoa, you're just pulling this one out. You're pulling this one out. And even in the finals, they went down 0-2.
Katie was a foot on the line away from. That's what I love about the Jeff Teague. Have you ever heard Jeff Teague's story on that? He's like, I thought we were gonna lose. I was talking to Bryn Forbes, and Bryn Forbes said that we weren't gonna win the series. Look up if anybody is still listening to us and talk and keeping up with us. Look up Jeff Teague's analysis on that Brooklyn series when he was in Milwaukee, because he was on that championship team in Milwaukee and he was a Celtic to begin that season. But
we thought he was going to be the replacement for Brad Wanamaker. Didn't happen.
Yikes. That's a whole nother tangent. But look up Jeff Teague's story about him playing the Nets that year. It was pretty funny. And the fact that I made a Bryn Forbes reference in 2023 is also kind of crazy. Because shout out Bryn Forbes, because he outscored Jimmy Butler in that first round series that year. I remember that was a big thing because they beat Miami in the first round and Bryn Forbes outscored Jimmy Butler. Also, actually, no, don't shout out Bryn Forbes. He's kind of not a good person. So,
wait, well, let me say this about the internet nowadays, folks. The internet just puts labels on people all the time, and it's like the internet is not real life. Nobody knows anyone's real life on the internet. Everybody's real life happens out in real life and reality all over the place. And the internet is only a small promotional representation of one's life. So I don't know. I feel like the internet is very quick to attack somebody without the full scope of really what goes on within somebody's life or routine or whatever. But I do have the video here for Jeff Teague in front of me. It's like 2 minutes. I guess I can't put it up on the broadcast though right now.
No, but like anyway.
Wait, you guys see can you hear the audio for this?
Look, I'm gonna keep it real. Look, story time with T. Look, we played game 1. They beat us. I'm like, game 1 is a test game. Everybody like, yeah.
No, but like anyway.
Game 2, they beat us by 30 seconds. I went to the locker room. You talking about packing up?
All right, I don't think it's working. But
so it's got to Milwaukee. I packed my big old little, I got the big truck, the 4x4 joint. I packed it. I put everything. I was only there half a season, so I had all my shit in that truck. I said, yeah, this is over. Kyrie sprained that ankle. You see the whole team. You see their energy, like they get zapped. Like they be like, "Are we gonna win this game?" Because Kyrie get hurt, their energy gets zapped. But you see the energy on our team, like, oh, shit, like, this might be our chance. So I'm like, I ain't playing. So I'm at the end of the bitch and me and all the dudes that they played me, Axel, Brent Forbes. We ain't getting no clock, so we like. They probably still gonna beat us. You know what I mean? We damn near hate because we ain't getting in the game. Like, low key, like, man, I don't even care. Like, I ain't even get in. But I'm hurt. I had hurt my knee, so I was like, come on, y'all, we can win. But I really didn't think we could win. But we win game 3, Kyrie get hurt. I'm like, shit. I don't even know if we win game 4. If we did, all right, cool. But this is when KD became the best player in the world to me because he started going crazy. It's when he had all them points, triple doubles, all that crazy stuff. But the whole time, the thing that's funny about this story is Brent Forbes. Shout out to Brent. I can't even say it. Yeah, I can. He never thought he was going to win. Wow. Yo, man, we used to be on the sideline. KD hit something. I told you. Just ain't meant to be, bro. Shout out to Brent. Bro, PJ, my right hand dog, I've messed with him forever. I love that dude, but he was cooking that nigga. I told you on the show. He was doing it so bad. Me and Bridge just look at each other like, yeah, we ain't got a chance, bro. Like, it's over, bro.
So Brent Forbes never thought.
Brent Forbes never thought Milwaukee was gonna win.
So also the audio problem there at the beginning, I was playing our live in the background, so it was meshing with that video audio.
Anyway, but we get it. Jeff Teague and Bryn Forbes didn't really think that the Bucks were going to win that series, and I guess that kind of ties back into our whole Bucks didn't have a dominant championship run. But if you ask any Milwaukee fan that, they're just going to say a ring is a ring, and that's kind of where any argument's going to stop. So.
Yeah, and I don't know how we got so far off on that tangent, but I feel like we're at the like when you go drive somewhere, right, and you're in the city and you're driving through the city and there's like downtown and whatnot. Like the beginning of the show is like downtown, Celtics Cavs post game, and then you just drive outside of the city and keep going, and then you just go into the rural forest, the rural fields of what happened in 2021 with the Bucks and the playoffs and the Blazers and what happened? What is going on? Like, what? I remember those days 2 years ago. So I feel like that's where we're out in the show. It's like we're all the way out in the sticks of the highway. We're all the way out, from where we started the show, which is Celtics Cavs. But going back to what we were originally on for most of the show, which is the Celtics, we got a little bit off on a tangent about a former Celtic and one of the Celtics opponents, in which still trying to go for a ring with different people on their roster now, the Milwaukee Bucks. But tonight, the Boston Celtics defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers 120-113. And your thoughts, Ian, any final thoughts on this Celtics Cavs game? I know it's pretty hard to come back on
coming
Celtics
back
Cavs
all the way
right now
to that game
after talking about all this, but any thoughts on Celtics Cavs left that we might have for this game?
Shout out Derek White. I don't think we ever talked about Derek White, and I wasn't on the last post game because I was at the game. I assume you guys talked about Derek White a lot in the next game. But yeah, shout out Derek White. He's the real MVP, even though he doesn't want to be recognized as the MVP, which was hilarious because I have a funny story about that game and the Knicks game. I don't know if you heard the MVP chants when Derek White was shooting free throws at the end of the game. Me and my friend were the people that started those chants.
Oh!
And I'm not lying. The first time Derek White shot free throws at the end of the game, we started chanting it, and almost nobody chanted it. The second time, everyone started chanting it. If you hear at the end of the game, the last time he shot free throws, when he got the 30-piece, we were the only two people, and I was in section 17. I was like 4 rows away from the court. I was in row 4. We were the only people standing up and yelling MVP. And then the second time, more people started yelling it. So I'm not going to say, like, I'm not going to take 100% credit with the fact that we were the ones that called Derek White MVP. But the fact that they had to ask him the question after the game, I thought it was kind of funny.
Well, you kind of see we do have this kind of effect as fans.
Hey,
we have these
that's what I'm
effects
saying.
as,
And
as fans, especially
he said tonight the reason why the Celtics are 11-0 at home is because we have the best fans.
I feel like people go to a game, right? And sometimes the mentality, people just go out mentality like, all right, just we're here to watch the game, blah, 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 right? And most people are just there to watch the game. But come on, fans, bring some energy.
And I will
bring
say,
some
and
energy. Get involved, get engaged in the game. It's not going to hurt to have a little fun.
I do have one more thing about that specific thing. This can turn into a bigger tangent, but I don't think we should go into that tangent.
We're on the sticks, like I said.
The biggest reason as to why that game in particular was so much fun and there were so many people was because the tickets were insanely cheap, because it was a game that wasn't originally scheduled, and you could get tickets to that game for $40, which is insanely cheap in Celtics game ticket standards. So
especially against the Knicks,
a rivalry game, quote unquote, against a legitimate Eastern Conference team, division rival, I think. Whatever. I don't think divisions matter in the NBA anyway. But $40 for a ticket, every single person I knew that was a fan of the Celtics was at that game. And guess what? You get funny moments like Derek White getting MVP chants at the end of a game, which he rightfully deserved.
So. Yeah, and this is why it's going to turn to a bigger tangent here, is because
this is what
I am not in support of leagues making championship games a big corporate event. Okay, I'm just not, because for as much money as they do make on those games, you're taking the product aspect of it out entirely. The game you're describing, right? The Celtics fans who entered the arena that night, they're closer to being real diehard Celtics fans, okay? Because I feel as if once you put paywalls up, right? More and more paywalls, and extend the paywalls, right? You already have a paywall up everywhere. But once you extend them, it's like, well, less people are going to be able to get over them. And all of a sudden, it's not your hardcore fans. It's, well, who has the cash to actually get into the arena, right? And some of the championship games we saw, Las Vegas, in-season tournament, we see, this is a totally different league, so kind of unrelated, a little bit related, blah, 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 right? Different league, but Super Bowl. All of these events, hardcore, diehard fans aren't really at these events. And if they are, they're pretty drained, or it's pretty hard to get a ticket. It's just pretty hard to get a ticket, and a lot of the tickets are handed out to company workers, and to me, the atmosphere in Vegas, I personally thought the in-season tournament atmosphere in Vegas was awful.
It was so bad.
I thought it was awful. Look at Indiana, right? We played Indiana, and it was like, I almost went to that game. I didn't go to that game, but I almost went to that game. And when I saw the atmosphere, I was like, maybe should have went. I was like, maybe should have went, because
imagine if the finals were held in Indiana, like against the Lakers.
Real.
Oh my God!
And that's basketball country too. Basketball country is in Indiana.
You know why it was held in Vegas in the first place was because the NBA wants to expand in Vegas, and
it's going to be good for the league to do that long term, and putting the in-season tournament in Vegas, like you're exposing that market to basketball, which is ultimately what they want to do, and it's going to be good for them in the long run for growth. But I really feel as if, looking at the atmosphere and the product of what we see on TV, it's way better to see teams play in front of atmospheres of die-hard fans instead of corporate atmospheres, or atmospheres of fans who can afford being there instead of it being just people who actually care, because that's where it really gets into with a lot of ticket sales when we get later on down the line for important games. And I really do feel as if sometimes, you know, got to think about the product. Think about the
And
people
like
who are
if you
there.
look at small markets, like look at Sacramento last year. If
Mhm.
you watch, and even
They're
this year, if
still
you watch a Sacramento Kings game in Sacramento, I mean
it's one of my favorite events, honestly, at
that.
night when they're playing,
Oh
is
yeah,
to watch one of their games
it's
because they play
absolutely
fast and their crowd
electric,
gets into it. And if they
and
win,
they
it's
have
light
the
the beam
beam,
time.
and they have they have everything, and it's like look at the like small markets like Sacramento. Look at Memphis when Memphis is good. That that arena is rocking anytime Memphis is good. Like just the and like maybe that's just being the product of a big market team like us, and first world problems perhaps when it comes to that kind of situation. But I mean, you see games like Detroit versus Washington that those tickets for like $2. I don't think you would ever see that in Boston. It doesn't matter how bad the Celtics are. You would never see tickets that go that low. So,
That's where we were kind of 100% lucky as Celtics fans from the
oh
standpoint
yeah,
of
we've had
we've
consistent
had
success for our entire lives, pretty much.
we've had moments of not making the play. Well, actually, the last decade we've made the playoffs every year. The last decade, the one year we didn't make it was 2013-14, and then before that it was 2006-7, and then before that stretch we made a couple of runs, the Eastern Conference Finals, even with the young Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker. The 90s were not great. Definitely had an opportunity to take over the 90s there at the end with a couple of draft selections maybe going a little bit differently, but that didn't happen. I feel as if the league just can't let us fail anymore. The
Yeah,
Boston Celtics could, because
The
imagine,
Celtics are too profitable when it comes
even
to.
the Knicks, I don't feel as if the Knicks can ever be as bad. The league cannot let them be as bad as they were the
Oh, they
last
can't.
decade. I mean, not now though, like not stemming from now. I want to say, 2000 after Melo left, 2000 like 12, 13 era. I shouldn't say after Melo left because he was actually there during some of the awful days after his prime, that stretch there. The league can't let those kind of stretches happen. The Lakers, the same thing. Celtics, their 90s stretch. Because just think, the LA market, the New York market, the Boston market, those are massive markets that the NBA, they don't have teams performing in those cities. It's like that market completely dwindles, whereas smaller market teams have to worry about, like, we're not going to be favored as a market. Like, we're going to be, if we're not progressing constantly or keeping up with the Joneses, like we're not going to be helped along in a certain way. And you could find yourself in a situation where you're completely marginalized as a market, like say New Orleans, say Charlotte, Memphis, all some of these places that although have diehard crowds. I want to say a lot of these places do have diehard crowds, and that's what we're kind of talking about with the conversation, where a lot of these places, small market teams, although they're not catered to, a lot of their crowds, they can really get after it because of the fact more of the diehard fans are coming into play and not just the fans who can afford the tickets at the end of the day. And some of the more important games, the corporate crowds, as they like to call them. But yeah, being a big market team, it's like there's some level
It has
of
its
rich game to it.
advantages and its disadvantages because it and like anytime you talk about like the problems from like a big market team's perspective, you kind of get like the whole first world problems kind of thing. Because it's like, oh no, the Celtics haven't won a finals, even though they've been in the
Right.
Eastern Conference Finals the last 5 of 7 years, but they haven't won the finals. And God, is there any team that's what city has it worse than Boston? When it comes to sports, they haven't won a championship since 2018. It's the longest. It's the longest drought since you know. Actually, it's kind of funny. This is kind of different, but the Red Sox, if they don't win the World Series this year, it'll be the longest play. It'll be the longest time without a World Series since the '86 curse.
That is nuts. That is nuts because I will
It'll
say
be
you
the
guys will have a
longest
shot.
time in between titles.
You guys will have a shot. I think we'll it's not like this. It's so weird how much money Otani got because baseball's like you don't just win the World Series or become competitive off of one guy like that,
Mhm.
like you do in the NBA. We see in the NBA, like you sign one guy like LeBron. It's like okay, the
Or Kevin
entire
Durant,
complexity of
Golden
your
State.
the entire complexity of your team has changed. Whereas baseball, it's like okay, you added one guy, now you have to culminate the rest of the stats to win a World Series. So it's like, yeah, the Red Sox could have a chance this year. You never know, even though
It's not looking good so
y'all
far. But
y'all well, my team too, and the Cardinals. I don't know
yeah,
how we got on a
the
baseball
Red
tangent
Sox. The
here,
Red
but
Sox lost a bidding war with Seth Lugo to the Kansas City Royals. So I guess
Seth Lugo to the
yeah.
Royals. I was just in Kansas City, so I was just outside of his new home stadium. They were closed.
I
The
had
team
one of
stores
my
closed on
old
Sunday, folks.
managers.
Closed on Sunday.
One of my old managers. When she worked with me, she ended up getting a job with the Royals. So shout out her.
Good for her. Who knew that she was going to get a shout
And
out?
she ran. I think it was merchandising for the Royals and the Chiefs at the same time because small market.
Yes, this is true.
So
Only two teams in that market, and they're right next to each other, same parking lot. Literally, walk the stadium right there. I mean, seriously, you walk 2 feet. Feels like it's not even a mile walk. It's
places
nothing.
like that are cool. Have you ever been to Baltimore?
No.
Baltimore has
Unfortunately
the
not.
same exact thing. The Raven, they literally have a pathway between the Raven Stadium and the Orioles Stadium. Like they have like one sidewalk that you can walk down the street from the Camden Yards to the Raven Stadium. It's pretty
Baltimore
cool.
has some cool colors going on with their sports teams.
Yeah.
Orioles, Ravens. I know that maybe Boston. Not exactly a fan of
I mean, we have
Baltimore
the primary
sports
colors,
teams.
so
Yeah,
like
but
you got the red, the green, the blue, the yellow. Like we have all the colors. It's just you don't see an orange, you don't see a purple come around here too often.
right.
So
Well, I don't know. I feel like
okay,
we've gotten so.
okay. I have one more thing to talk about,
Yeah, go ahead.
and it's a G League related thing. Shout out JD Davison, Player of the Week with the Maine Celtics. 27 points, 4 rebounds, 9.7 assists, 2 steals, 54% from 3. Also, and this was because I watched a Maine Celtics broadcast. I don't know exactly how close he is, but I think he's second all time in Maine Celtics assists, and he's only been there for 2 years.
Wow. I wonder what the ceiling is for some of the players we do have in
Because
Maine.
JD Davison, Jordan Walsh has been absolutely killing it in the G League right now. So
G League is becoming kind of a development. I mean, it's always been a developmental system
but it's
for
becoming a
players, but
lot more like a minor league to an NBA team
right.
these
It's
days.
not just theoretical development. Like okay, we're just going to stash you down on the G League, and there's like an 0.1% chance that you're going to actually be anything. But nowadays, I actually feel as if teams put players down there for the purpose of you're going to play for us in 2-3 years. Like straight up, I kind of feel as if a guy like Walsh or JD Davison. I mean, Walsh is on the roster. He's not a two-way guy. He's on the roster. He's taking up a roster spot right now.
But he's
So
just in the G League because we don't have any room for him.
right,
So
and I kind of believe under those circumstances, you're developing like he's holding a roster spot right now. They're developing him there to eventually play him for real.
yeah, and
So
this is kind of like the whole baseball thing coming back to it, like the AAA, the AA. Like there's like when you get drafted out in Major League Baseball, you don't go immediately to the major leagues. You start in you have to go through like 4 different levels of minor league baseball, all more challenging than the next, just to see if you're good enough to be an MLB player. That's the wildest thing though. So many players get drafted, and like that's why you don't hear too much about like big MLB busts, like draft busts. Like you don't hear that too often. But that's because baseball is so difficult and you have to go through so much in the minor leagues that like say you're a first round pick in the MLB, you could flame out in single A, in double A. Like your entire career could be just spent in the minor leagues, and you'll never touch the team. Like you'll never touch the big leagues. You'll never be on the team that actually drafted you, which is so wild to think about compared to like the NFL or the NBA. So
it really
that's
is,
kind of cool.
because the also just the logistical side of that is actually mind-boggling to think about, for the fact of how do you receive enough income to live properly while in the minor leagues?
And that's
It's-
another thing. Like it just started last year. Like it took up until last season for MLB teams to finally be responsible for players' housing and like catering and stuff.
That's
Before
absolutely
that,
ridiculous. It took them that long, but thankfully there has been some
they
movement.
literally had to figure it out. It took until last season for them to actually, for the MLB teams to actually be responsible for like living, like for where players actually live. In
Jordan Clarkson out 2 weeks, by the way. We talked about him earlier. Out 2 weeks all of a sudden.
That was like an hour ago. We talked about Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah. We thought that was like near the end of the show then.
I know.
Yeah.
I thought we were like, oh, we're wrapping up. We just did player of the game, We're about to hit with the final thoughts.
No. We're bringing this.
Another.
We're bringing this all the way out here, but I guess I eventually have to end the show at some point, because
Rob's gonna have to do a little more editing. So if Rob wants to just like break up the different parts where we talk about like the different tangents, like how like on YouTube you can like time skip to the different things. I don't know if you can do that on a live stream, but if Rob could do that, like you could time skip to our Jeff Teague talk, our Jordan Clarkson talk, our our ticket talk, our Derek White MVP talk,
And shout out to NBA Central too, for I got that video from Jeff Teague talking earlier from NBA Central's account. I don't know who originally filmed the video. Apologize for that, but NBA Central was where I retained the video from. So
and shout out NBA Central, because that's where I saw Draymond Green slap Yusuf Nurkic in the face. So
NBA Central, one of the better
just don't talk
Twitter
about
accounts out there for sure, undoubtedly. But anyway, for this post-game show, giving out so many shout-outs. We talked about baseball. We've talked about Jordan Clarkson and the Utah Jazz. We talked about 2021, 2014. Talked about the Celtics beating the Cavs at one point. Do you guys
remember?
Anybody still around here? Do you guys remember us when we were talking about the Celtics beating the Cavs? Because that happened tonight as well.
That did happen. But everybody played a great game.
But I will say this about us going off on tangents. We're going to play the Cavs again, folks. We're going to play the Cavs again. There's going to be plenty of talk about Celtics Cavs post game on Thursday night, I believe.
If you think we talked about every possible tangent, especially when it comes to stuff like Kyrie Irving, previous Celtics seasons, random NBA player stuff, that we haven't even scratched the surface. So
we could honestly be on here another 2 hours, but I actually think Restream doesn't let you go on that long. I think it lets you go
Restream stops you after like a certain amount of time. So
yeah, so we definitely have to end the show here soon. But that's pretty much Celtics Cavs. Like, final thoughts. I know we said that a long time ago, but everybody played well for the Celtics tonight, and 25 points from the Jays, both of them each combining for 50 tonight. Kristaps Porzingis, 21 points in his second game back from calf tightness. Derek White, 17 points of his own, 5 of 8 from three-point land tonight. He was super effective. All of his shots were made from three-point land tonight. Drew Holiday, he took over huge portions of this game. He himself had 11 points. The bench, Sam Hauser, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, they combined for 17, and Luke Cornett added another 4 on top of that. So 21 points from the bench tonight. You look at the entire Celtics roster from the top to the bottom. Can't find a bad player on tonight's Celtics roster. And the Celtics, they were able to defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers 120-113 on the garden floor. This post game, we've been on here pretty long, but now officially, Ian, officially,
nothing else to talk
this is
about.
coming to an end. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo, aka Celtics Every Day. My guy next to me right here, Ian and Angelo. We see. Go follow us on the bottom of this screen here. You see the ticker. It's been going on for a while. Go follow us on our social media pages, Celtics.everyday. And of course, I and Angelo on Instagram. And of course, Ian too. Go hit him up on TikTok as well. We'll be back on here again Thursday, December 14th for Celtics versus Cavs. We'll have all of your coverage coming after the final buzzer. But for tonight, that is it from us. And as I always say before we end the show here, go Celtics.